Okay, good to see you again, student. Hopefully you're always healthy there and happy. Let's continue with our lesson, fertilization, as a part of reproductive system. So fertilization is fusion or the combination of male and female sex cells. As we know, sex cells includes sperm and ovum, and when they combine together, they combine their genetic materials to make one new individual. We call them zygote, and this process is called fertilization, and it happens in fallopian tube or oviduct. Okay, so let's continue. So this is the process of fertilization itself. As you can see, multiple sperm try to invade or try to get through the zona pellucida and get into the egg, and whatever sperm that make the first through wins. Okay, and by that I mean the egg will release enzyme that makes it impossible for other sperm to bind to the cells, to the egg cells. So with this, virtually there's only one sperm per egg. Okay, because remember that egg carry half information, the other half is carried by the sperm, so half plus half equals 1. So you don't want additional information. So if there are more than one sperm fertilizing one egg, bad things, but it doesn't happen anyway. Let's continue. And this is the stage or the process in which the fertilization happens. Virtually there's 4 steps. The first one is the ovulation or the release of the ovum. The second one is the fertilization itself, and then this stage is where the zygote divides. Every time it divides, it produces two cells. So from 1 to 2, and then 4, and then 8, and then you get the idea. And then finally, up to this stage, which we call blastocyst. Blastocyst is the structure that allows implantation to happen. Implantation is when the blastocyst bury itself into the wall of the uterus. Okay, it needs to bury itself to the uterus because uterus is sprawling with blood vessels, especially when it at the thickest. And then blood vessels carry lots of blood, of course. With blood comes the nutrients, the food, the oxygen, everything that the new embryo, needs to grow. Okay, so on to the next slide. So pregnancy is started with fertilized ovum, of course, and then the duration of the pregnancy is around 40 weeks for human. Okay, other mammals might be vary. And then start with implantation, and here we go. We have the stages or checkpoint. We start with zygote, morula, blastula, gastrula, blastocyst, and embryo, and then embryo implanted, then placenta form. So placenta is the structure that facilitates the transfer between mom and baby. The mom will send food, air, water. Baby will send back waste. Okay, that's you to mom. So thanks to your mom. Okay then, so without the placenta, pregnancy cannot proceeds for human. But many other mammals, they lack placenta. For example, kangaroo and other marsupials. So that's why they were born very early in the stage of development. So, for example, kangaroo can stand up to 2 meters, but their baby is as big as honeybee because they don't have placenta. Okay, so continue. So this is the fetal development. You can see I'm not going to read all of this information. You can find your accompanying notes, but here at least you know what's the difference between zygote, embryo, and fetus. I already mentioned that zygote is when the sperm and egg meet and fuse together. Embryo is when they when the zygote has successfully implanted to the endometrium, and fetus is when the baby start to grow the organs that they need to survive. Okay, so fetus is already baby-like, okay, with all the features that came with a baby. And this is us at the early stage of our development. Development goes heavily in favor of growth. That's why you can see that over time our body grow a new thing, grow new organs. The first organ that will show up is heart, and then brain, and so on. And then growth is then becomes becomes focus only at the later stage of the development. Okay, that's why in pregnancy you can see that early pregnancy the mom's belly is not yet that big. Okay, by the end of the pregnancy, growth is somewhat exponential. Okay, so development is first in favor of growth in human. Next, this is the baby already positioned itself himself, I mean, prior to baby delivery. Okay, so during baby in the late stage of the pregnancy, baby will position the head towards the vagina in this position. Okay, so this is the late stage of the pregnancy. So in this picture you can see the placenta. Here the placenta, quite big, and then attached to the placenta is umbilical cord actually. Okay, and this is the cervix. We need to remember this for later, because cervix usually closed. Cervix is a gate to the uterus, usually closed, but in this case it needs to be open because baby's head is big. Okay, and sorry there. Okay, little hiccup there. It's okay, everything is good. Where are you, baby? Here. So again, baby's head is quite big, so if the cervix cannot open properly, the baby cannot go through. Okay, so that's that. After this, we'll continue with the next slide. Okay, so this is the stage of birth. First, we have the dilation of the cervix. As I mentioned before, cervix needs to be widened to allow the baby to exit through the vagina, and then delivery of the baby, and then the delivery of the afterbirth, also known as the placenta. So after the baby was born, the placenta will follow. The time difference is around 30 minutes. Okay, so that's that. Oh yeah, by the way, in order to make possible for cervix to open, the mother needs to undergo series of contraction, and this is what makes the childbirth painful. Okay, you can ask your mom, and she will notice that during the contraction it's when the most painful. Okay, let's continue. So menstruation itself. So what's menstruation? Menstruation is the release of dead ovum, blood, and the lining of the uterus mostly, because if you remember my explanation previously, in order to facilitate implantation, the lining of the uterus needs to thickens, and when nothing happens, then it will shed, it will breaks down, it will disintegrate, and that's what makes it appear like a blood. Well, there's a lot of blood, of course, because the lining of the uterus contain lots of blood vessels, I mentioned before, and the cycle is around 28 days. And this is the diagram. Here some things worth mentioning. For example, in the x-axis, this is the day, starting with day 0. And what is day 0? The first day of menstruation, as you can see here. Okay, and then here we have the endometrial cycle, or the thickness of the endometrium, the thickness of the inner lining of your womb, okay, and then this is various hormones levels, and this is the follicular development. Follicle is this structure that allow egg to develop. So this is egg, the small one is egg, and the follicle is the structure that encompassing the egg. So the question that related to this is just comprehension actually, how you read the table. For example, some people may ask, when is the uterus is the thinnest? Then you can see the diagram here. It's thinnest at around day 4. When is the ovulation happen? Day 14. At what time progesterone is peaking? We can see progesterone peaking at around day 22, for example, and so on. Okay, so it's actually quite simple. Just take your time and understand the graph. Okay, I cannot teach you how to understand the graph because, well, it's already teach in mathematics and other subjects, right? And just you take your time, okay, and remember this. And then some notes. For example, menstruation happens around 4 days, and then from day 4 to 14, ovaries preparing new ovums. Everything in here actually is mentioned in the diagram. Okay, and then this is some of the hormones. These 4 hormones present in female, and the function is to control everything related with female's reproductive system. Okay, male will have different sets of hormones. Okay, now about twins. What about twins? Twins happens when pregnancy result in multiple baby. Okay, there are 2 possibilities. One is identical and 2 is fraternal. Let me show you. For identical twins, they actually result from 1 egg and 1 sperm, and then during the process of division, somehow it resulted in 2 individual, okay, separated with shared placenta. Okay, so 1 placenta, 2 babies or more, but eventually it's come from only 1 sources, 1 sperm and 1 egg. Now, in rare cases, a female will release more than 1 eggs. Okay, so you can see here. And then if both are fertilized, then you got 2 individuals with separate placenta. So identical twins, very similar, identically similar, okay, they have the same DNA. Fraternal twins, of course, they have different DNA because they came from different sets of ovum and egg. Okay, last thing, puberty. So what's puberty? Puberty is when your reproductive system becomes active and functional. Okay, as a child, your reproductive system is not yet active. Okay, when you hit puberty, your reproductive system becomes active, and as a subsequent events that happens after that is series of changes. Okay, both physical, emotional, and so on. So this is pictures of teenager. Okay, which is usually the time when most people get puberty. So in puberty, there are primary and secondary development features that separates both sexes. Okay, when I learned about this back in my college day, the name for this or the terms for this is primary sexual characteristic and secondary sexual characteristics. The primary for male is wet dream, or also known as nocturnal emission. This is not when you wet your bed or something, no, but this is when males perform ejaculation, okay, unknowingly during the dream usually, or sometimes we call them lucid dream or something. So it's the official terms is nocturnal emission, nocturnal being night, and then emission is the release of sperm. And then secondary characteristics including height increase rapidly, more muscle mass than females. The sound becomes deeper, the voice becomes deeper because male have thicker vocal cord and larger voice box, And then hair grows in certain places. Okay, well, we know that human body is covered in hair, not only in your head. If you look at your arms, there's also hair there. Okay, but this specifically happens in armpits and pubic area. And then your appetite increase. Yeah, your desire to eat. Well, it's not only people who are puberty, even I sometimes. Anyway, for female, the primary development is menstruation. The secondary including height increase. The breast grow larger. Okay, so it's more developed mammary gland to produce milk to nurture the baby. Male, even though we have mammary gland, but since we don't have the hormones, it means we cannot produce milk. Okay, even though it will be nice if we can also. Yeah, I don't know. And then the sounds is one pitch higher than male. The hips becomes rounder and wider, and just like the males, hair grows in certain places. So I guess that's it. The video is well, already long, yeah, but if you pay attention to the end of the video, well, I say thank you, okay, for your attention. Not many people are commit to watch more than 10 minutes video on YouTube. So yeah, hopefully it means something to you. I mean, you can learn something, and we meet again in the next topics, which is the sexually transmitted infection or sexually transmitted disease. Okay, that's it. God bless you.